Hey friends, welcome back. Now in the last video we have seen various options how we can apply all as well as values in combination with the calculate function. However, if I take a look at our total sales value function here, it actually is kind of static, right? Because what we did was we specified here a product table, in this case the product name, and we set it to Red Bull. And this of course is static. That is why, as an example, here we would always see the 50 and here also we'd always see the 50. Now, what if we would like to make this a little bit more dynamic? So instead of having always Red Bull, we would actually have the option to, well, apply any kind of selection. And based on our selection, this would return the values for Monster, Red Bull, Relentless, or Rockstar. Or, of course, if you have different values in your specific table, then, of course, those values. So how can we do that? Well, there's an option to apply the values function a little bit differently. So instead of using values here with calculate, let's actually create a table based on values. Remember what values did. It returns a table of a unique list, so without duplicates, of a specific column. So let's do that. Let's say I would like to see a unique list from my product table of the product names. So in my case, the energy drinks. I can simply go under, in this case, we go to modeling here, and say under modeling, I'd like to create a new table because I want to create it with a DAX expression. So I take this option here and just a second, here we go. There's the table. And this table will be my product names TBL. Okay, it's equal to. And I will use the values function one more time. But this time I'm referring to, for my values, I'm referring to the product table, and for the product table itself, the product name. If I do that, what this does is basically it creates a new table in our dataset here. And this table will be simply a unique list, so our duplicates of product names. If I press enter, let's just see. And there is our product names table created. And we can have a look if we want. Simply go to the data view, take this option here, and then select your product names table, and you see that's basically what it contains. So a pretty easy table, simply a unique list of all the product names. That's what values does. So then we can use this new table as our filter table. So I could say I'm using my, in this case, the product name table, this one here, and let me select it first. Okay, there's my table. And now I can make a slicer of that. So that's why I'm choosing here to switch from table to a slicer visual, take the slicer option, and then I have my unique list of product names here, which I can select. Like that, that, and so on, right? Okay, so let me actually maybe make this a little bit bigger so you can see that better. So go with the item section here of the slicer in the formatting options, and let's say the text size, let's set this maybe to 15, right? One more, 15. Okay, now it's a little bigger. And sometimes you don't like actually this view. What I often prefer is if I go under the general section of a slicer, I always have the option here to change the orientation. And if you switch from vertical to horizontal, like that, you see that now we got these boxes, which you can format further, of course. You can change the outline color as well as the fill color or the color of the font and so on. But I personally prefer oftentimes this kind of filter. It looks a little bit more appealing to me. Okay, so here we got our filter. So far so good. And now, as you've seen already, if I select something, well, that's good, but actually nothing happens, right? So I've selected Monster Energy here, but I still see here, as an example, the value for Red Bull. The same is true for the all function, by the way, right? Because we hard-coded the value in the formula. So that's why we first need to get actually the selection we do here. And before we actually create the measure, let's actually take a little bit of time and explore here in the model view what this table actually, or how the table is actually now currently related to the model we have. So here you see the new table which we've created, and here I need to go to the right a little bit. There it is. This new table has currently no relationship, right, to our model. That's important. Okay, we don't want to have any relationship. We don't need it because we want to create a measure which allows us basically then to do the filtering, even though we don't have any relationship. But I just wanted to point this out here. So the product name has no relation, and that is also why we can tick anything here, but nothing will happen, okay? We don't see here a filtered now to Monster Energy, for instance, because we don't have any relationship. Okay, So how can we get now this value here, which we select? Well, there's a function in Power BI, which is a so-called selected value function, which can give us exactly this result. So if I go back to my table, in this case I'm going with this one here, that's fine, and I right click here and go to the measures table. So let me select it for now, create the measure in this table. We can move this later on in any kind of table, or also in a measures table if we want to do that, but for now let's stick here, okay? Now this measure is simply the, let's say, selected product. And now this is equal to the selected value function. There it is. Selected, where is it? I need to spell selected value. Here we go. Now here, returns the value when there's only one value in the specified column, otherwise returns the alternate result. So if we tick this option, press the tab key here, we can give it a column name, and this is optional because it's in brackets here, an alternate result. So if I'm referring to the column name, I could refer to from my product names table, which we created. So product names table, I would like to see the product name itself. Okay. So that's the table we have created with the values function. So let me close this for now. And if I press enter, we can simply see what this selected product will return. So let me actually tick this option here. And then instead of a bar chart, I actually, because it's a text, let me switch this maybe to a card visual. Take the card option here, and currently we see blank. Now why is that? Because we haven't made any selection, right? So if you tick as an example Monster Energy here, you'll see that now we see Monster Energy. If I tick Red Bull, I would get Red Bull, and so on. So now this selected value function actually returns the specific value which is selected by the product name. And remember, it only returns a value if there's only one product selected. So if you select more than one product, if I hold my control key and click on Monster Energy as well, now I've selected 2 of them, now it returns blank again, because it only returns a value if there's one selected. If you don't want to see the blank, of course you can easily change this. Let me go back to Monster here, select this option here, and go to our measure, this one, because remember there was an alternate result. So I could use a comma here, and as an alternate result, I can specify, for instance, Red Bull, if I want to use this as my default value. And now if I press enter, so press enter here for the formula, now you would see Red Bull as default. So whenever there is, let me click Relentless, I can see Relentless, but now if I remove my filter, if I deselect it, you'll see it's Red Bull. So even though I don't have selected anything, the default selection now is Red Bull. So if you want to have anything default, you can specify this in the alternate result. And now you avoid actually returning blank. So we got this as well. Let me make this maybe a little smaller here. Okay, here we got our card. And this measure, which we created here, the selected value product name, this one. So here we go, this one here. Now this can be used instead of the static value which we have applied. So all we do now is we go back to our, in this case was the sales table where we create all our measures so far. And now if I'm referring to my total sales values as an example, so this one, which we have created with the filter values function, where we specified a hard-coded value here for Red Bull, instead of using this Red Bull as a hard-coded value, we're simply referring to our selected product, which we used here. So instead of actually changing it here, I will simply copy this formula, okay? Copy it. You can write it again if you want, but in this case, let's be a little bit more efficient. I right click here, I go to new measure, and then I paste this inside. And this time I say total sales values selected. Okay, that's what I name it. Let's call this selected. And then we say filter values, that's fine. But now for the product table, product name is not equal to Red Bull. It's simply the selected value, basically what we return here. So we can simply say selected, and there, down there, there's the calculator icon, which is referring to the measure selected product. We can tick this option here, and then let's actually press enter to apply this formula so we don't get any errors. So far so good. And now we can also put this inside, so maybe make this table even a little bit bigger, and select now the total sales values here, selected. I tick this option here, and right now we also see it's 50, so it's the same as we had before. But if we now change something from the product name, let's take this Monster Energy. Watch what happens with our 50. It's now more dynamic. I can tick this option, and now I can see here it's 40, right? And if I click on Relentless, then it would be 25, and so on. So now this jumps and adjusts based on the selection we have done. So this works for this values function. So instead of having it hard-coded here or fixed, we simply make it more dynamic. And the same is true, of course, if we would now replace this in the total sales Red Bull, which we have created. Remember, as an example, we went here, for instance, for the all function. It's exactly the same. You just have to now change this hard-coded value here to the selection you made here, just to make it more dynamic. Okay? So that's a little Excourse, but I think that's important and interesting. So if you apply this out yourself, try it out. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.